Big news coming in, viewers. The BSF Jawan, who was in Pakistan's custody for the past several days, has now been formally handed back. And we can confirm that today BSF Jawan Poonam Kumar Sahu, who has been in custody of Pakistan Rangers since the 23rd of April, was handed over to India at around 10:30 hours to the joint checkpost at Atari in Amritsar. The handover was conducted peacefully in accordance with the established protocols. So remember, Poonam was in the custody of, who was believed to have mistakenly entered Pakistani territory and was in the custody of the Pakistani Rangers, which is of course their equivalent of the BSF for the past several weeks, right after, in fact, the terror attack in Pahalgam. And there was a lot of pressure being mounted on Pakistan to try and release him. Now we understand that in a big win for our force and a big diplomatic win, he has been handed over. Let me go across to my colleague Pradeep Datta, who's joining me with more details. Pradeep, take us through. Big win for India.
Yes, you're absolutely right. This is a big victory, a diplomatic victory for India. And finally, after several days, the BSF Jawan, who was in the captivity of Pakistani Rangers, had been handed over to Indian authorities at Atari border today. And he was there since 23rd of April. That means the day after Pahalgam massacre. He mistakenly, inadvertently crossed over to the other side. And since then, he was questioned. He was in their custody. On several occasions, there was even the flag meetings were there. But despite the flag meeting, they did not hand over this Jawan. But there was a lot of pressure from the Indian side. India had already made it clear to them that you have to hand over this Jawan to us. But now, after this successful conduct of Operation Sindhu, Pakistan has realized one thing, that India is in no mood to listen to anything. So it's better to mend ways and to have a better relationship with India than for the going for the confrontation. Because we have seen that what really happened just 2 days back, how they came out on knees and they almost surrendered. They were begging for ceasefire. From confrontation to ceasefire, we have seen that how Pakistan had really changed over the period of time. It was only because of the India's precision strike decimating many of their air bases that finally Pakistan had no other option but to change its stance, and they asked for the ceasefire. This seems to be another important development in that direction. On one hand, where the guns have fallen silent, and that is actually where the Modi's new security doctrine seemed to be working, because Modi has made it clear, any act of terror, that will be seen as an act of war. If somebody is opening a small farm fire, we are going for the punitive action, we will be decimating the post. And now this gesture coming from Pakistan side, that today they finally handed over this Poonam Kumar, the BSF Jawan, who was in their captivity since April 23rd, has finally been released, handed over to BSF authorities at Atari border. This will be a big sigh of relief for the family members, because for the last several days, they had also been asking authorities to take certain measures so that he can return back home. It was on 23rd of April, let me tell viewers what really had happened. While he was on duty along the international border in Firozpur sector of Punjab, during duty, he inadvertently, means mistakenly, he crossed over to the other side. He was nabbed by Pakistani Rangers who were deployed there. Since then, India had been asking for several flag meetings. Flag meetings were conducted. Sometimes they came, sometimes they did not come for the flag meeting. But every time, their standard reply was that we can't hand over. The seniors and the superiors have to decide. Because that was a time where the tension between the two countries was very high. And India had already made up their mind that they will be going for the kinetic action. And finally, on the intervening night of 6th and 7th, we saw that how India was able to decimate and demolish 9 of their terror dens. And this was a 25-minute-long operation. 24 missiles were fired, 9 terror dens were decimated, and more than 100 terrorists were killed, which included terror clan of Masood Azhar, the man responsible for Pulwama bombing. And after that, we saw that when they started targeting Indian military position, India was able to demolish and decimate many of their air bases. 11 of the air bases were inflicted with heavy damages. After that, Pakistan was on knees. And now they realize that after ceasefire, this will be the best gesture they can show from their side. This is a big diplomatic victory for India. That means India's strong offensive defensive policy seems to be working. India's security doctrine that has been already there, unleashed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, seemed to be working. Pakistan is completely on knees. Pakistan seemed to have surrendered. The same Pakistan which was not ready to hold flag meeting in this regard. The same Pakistan which was not ready to hand over the BSF soldier to India. Finally, without anything, they came out to Atari border, handed over this BSF soldier to BSF, to BSF people here at Atari. And finally now he will be now questioned, and after that medical checkup and every formality, then he will be taken to the particular unit. But yes, this is a big diplomatic victory, because for the last few days we have seen that this was really a big headache for the diplomatic authorities as well as the soldiers there on the ground. They were trying their level best to somehow get him back, because it was almost similar to what really happened during second surgical strike, when the Balakot strike was conducted, and that was the time when Abhinandan was taken into custody. That time also, Prime Minister had sent a very strong message through his National Security Advisor to Imran Khan government. If you are not going to release Abhinandan within 24 hours, you will have to face the consequences, because India's BrahMos missile were that time also ready to decimate and demolish. Imran Khan that time realized the problem, what it can lead to, and so he realized the consequences it can lead to. So finally within 24 hours we have seen that Wing Commander Abhinandan was handed over to Indian authority, and that too was handed over at Atari. And now this BSF soldier who was in the captivity of Pakistani Rangers have finally been handed over to BSF at Atari border, and big diplomatic victory for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And that's one of the reasons that the world today is talking about the strong stance that India has taken. Offensive defensive policy seems to be working. Offensive policy when it comes to the terror gen, when it comes to Pakistani airbase, and also the capacity and capability to hit hard their enemy, and where it's going to hurt them most. Today, see, they're completely, Pakistan seems to have surrendered. They might be showing their domestic audience that they have won, they must be celebrating. But I think the intelligent people always learn from their mistake. Fool only try to celebrate their failure. That's what actually they have been doing. But they have been doing it because they want to keep their domestic audience intact, and they want to keep the vote bank intact. They're trying to, in fact, do this as a face saver. But right now the situation is that you can see, I think that Saboot gang also got another evidence that how India has been able to make Pakistan surrender before them. And this is another surrender, that the same person whom they were not ready to hand over few days back, despite several flag meetings, despite several requests, they were not ready to hand over back. And finally, today, they have handed over this BSF Jawan to Indian authorities at Atari border. A big success for India's diplomacy, and also a big sigh of relief for the family members of Poonam Kumar, who was there in that captivity since April 23rd. Let me tell again, viewers who have just joined us, it was on April 22nd when the Pahalgam massacre took place, in which 26 of our tourists, they lost their lives. It was one of the most barbaric incidents where the tourists were identified. Once they got to know they are not Muslim, they opened fire, killing them on point blank range. And after that, on 23rd, this man, Poonam Kumar, who was the BSF constable, who was deployed in Firozpur area in Punjab sector, while performing duty, he didn't realize he crossed the international border mistakenly, and while he entered the other side, the Pakistani Rangers caught hold of him, and he was in their custody. He was questioned, he was interrogated, but it was a mistake that he had gone on. Normally what happens if somebody mistakenly crosses over to that side, within 24 hours they hand over. But this time the things were different. Things were difficult. There was a tension between both the countries after that Pahalgam massacre.
Yes, indeed. Pradeep, do stay on with us. Let me also get in our colleague Rishabh at this point. Rishabh, we understand that what led to this, to the release of Poonam Shaw was effectively the fact that we also had a Pakistani ranger who had crossed over into Indian territory in our possession. And as a result, Pakistan had no choice but to agree to a swap of personnel who were in opposite sides of the border. And that exchange or swap of exchange of swap of personnel happened at the Atari border at 10:30. Do you have more details on what really went on?
Well, what we're given to understand that BSF Jawan who...
Yeah, go on, Rishabh, go on.
Your BSF Jawan who was in Pakistani custody, what happened? How did it go into Pakistani custody? So basically in the area, in the forward post, especially in Rajasthan and Punjab sector, there are, in the northern Rajasthan and Punjab sector, there are working fields, the agricultural fields, which are beyond the fencing that has happened in the no man's land. Whenever there is an international border, there is 150 yards from our side, 150 yards from their side. There are land which are called no man's land, where no permanent structure can be created, but yes, agriculture happens there. It happens in Jammu, it happens in Punjab, it happens in northern part of Rajasthan as well, Bikaner, Srinagar sector. So when the local people, the civilians, go ahead of fencing to get their agricultural work done, there is a BSF Jawan who goes with them as security. There are two reasons the BSF Jawan go. A, to ensure that from the other side, no untoward incident happen, firing is not doesn't take place, or they are not forcibly taken into custody. Second, to ensure that no one crosses over illegally. So the number of people, X number of people goes in, X number of people should come back as well. On this fateful day, what happened that the Poonam Shaw was on duty. He went with those farmers toward the fencing line, crossed the fencing line. Given that it was it was sunny day, it was warm day, he took refuge in under a tree. Sadly, that tree fell under Pakistani territory, and given that he had arms with him, he had his rifle with him, Pakistani rangers took him into custody for being on Pakistani territory. Since then, he has been in Pakistani custody. There have been a number of flag meetings. What happened next? Few days later, we got to know that in Sri Ganganagar, we have a Pakistani ranger into our custody. He was taken into custody on the charges of spying. He was not there with the farmers. He was not there in the no man's land. He was actually in Indian territory, trying to click photographs of a border outpost of BSF, also trying to gather more information about the number of troops there in that region. That's when a guard on the observation post realized that there's suspicious activity happening, and that's when he was taken into custody. Since then, there was negotiations happening. In between that, Operation Sindoor happened. The negotiations stopped. But once the ceasefire, the understanding for that matter, has been taken into consideration, and they have been, comparatively calm on the international border as well as LOC, BSF reinitiated the flag meetings, and the result of which we are seeing.
In fact, Rishabh, I think we can tell our viewers. I think you would have also got it. There's a press release which has just been tweeted out by the Border Security Force, and I'm reading that here. Today at 10:30 hours, which literally means just about an hour ago, Constable Poonam Kumar Shaw has been taken back from Pakistan by BSF at the Atari-Wagah border. Constable Poonam Kumar Shaw had inadvertently crossed over to Pakistan territory while on operational duty in the area of Firozpur sector on the 23rd of April around 11:50 hours, and was detained by Pakistan Rangers. Now, with the consistent efforts of BSF through regular flag meetings with Pakistan Rangers and through other communication channels, the repatriation of BSF constable has become possible. This is a press release that has been just sent out by the Border Security Force. Now, Rishabh, if you take, and Pradeep, Rishabh, I'll come to you first. If you take this into account, the fact that Poonam Kumar Shaw was in Pakistan Rangers custody for almost more than 3 weeks, as you pointed out, the regular protocol is that if it's an inadvertent crossing over the borders, he's generally released in 24 to 48 hours. Yet Pakistan waited for 3 weeks and only released him when we had evidence of someone who had deliberately strayed into our border and had the intent of espionage, and we had that man in our custody. Only then was Pakistan ready to release him. Indicates how Pakistan had the intent of keeping Poonam Kumar Shaw for a lot longer in order to use him as leverage in discussions with India.
That's for sure. See, Poonam Kumar Shaw is a constable in BSF. He was on duty, and inadvertently he crossed over to Pakistan. And also the place where he crossed over. For example, I'm just for our viewers, there is this side of the fencing, which is Indian side. There is this side of fencing, which is Pakistani side. Between these two fencings, there is no demarcated line except the border pillars, which are about 400 to 500 yards from each other. Apart from those border pillars, there is no distinction between India and Pakistan. That's where he was. He was between the two fencings. He was there on his regular duty, and it's a set protocol. Rangers come with the Pakistani civilians in those agricultural fields. BSF goes with Indian farmers in these agricultural fields. So between these 300 yards, there is no demarcated line about this is India and this is Pakistan. And he crossed over there. But the Pakistani ranger that BSF took into custody and later on handed over to the investigating agencies, it was very clear that he was beyond Indian fencing, which means that he was in demarcated Indian territory and was around a BSF BOP, border outpost, and was trying to click photos, take coordinates of those locations, and also trying to understand from the locals that how much of movement movement they have seen
Indeed,
in
Rishabh.
past
So
2 to 3 days.
the disparity is clear. One was caught in no man's land with innocuous intent. The other official was caught in Indian territory with a clear intent to carry out espionage. The bottom line remains that we have ensured that we don't give in to Pakistan blackmail, and we have been able to release, we have been able to get back Purnam Kumar Shaw. So that indicates that India has no, and Pakistan has no Indian Indian force member in its territory which it can use as leverage against us. Thank you so much, Rishabh and Pradeep, for joining us with those updates and perspectives as well. We head in for a short commercial, but more news and updates continue with me on Times Now. Stay tuned.